Rays fans, maybe not the casual Rays fan. I'm saying the one that watches Locked On Rays usually, the obsessed one, would they have been shocked at anything if they had? You don't have to tell me what, but would they have been shocked if they had been a fly on the wall in those meetings with Rob Manfred?
Yes, and he could do the golden bat roll tomorrow, and Rays fans should embrace it.
Wow.
He is probably the biggest advocate, one of the biggest advocates in Major League Baseball for fans in Tampa Bay.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, Ulysses, we have a little bit of a belated Christmas gift for the Locked On Rays listeners and viewers out there. We promised an informative, enjoyable guest, and we got that in spades with Chris Latvala, who you may know as the Pinellas County Commissioner, and has made a lot of headlines in the whole Rays back and forth between the county and city.
If you follow this stadium saga, you know who Chris Latvala is. If you're watching Locked On Rays, if you've hit that like button, if you've hit that subscribe button, you know who Chris Latvala is. And you guess what? You get to hear from him for the next 15 minutes. So get comfortable, get a drink, get a snack. But first, we got to tell you that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can finish off the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Again, visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Welcome into Locked On Rays, your daily podcast covering everything Tampa Bay Rays. From game analysis to player interviews, we've got you covered with all the latest news and insights. Ulysses, on today's program, we have a very special guest, and that is Chris Latvala, who is the Pinellas County Commissioner, one of the commissioners, and has made a lot of news of late, television, radio, newspapers, and so forth, based on everything that is going on with the stadium saga post-hurricane. Chris, we appreciate you for joining us, taking the time out of your day and busy schedule, and right after Christmas as well. So hopefully you have had a nice holiday season, and if we don't catch up with you before now in the new year, Happy New Year to you as well.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Good to have you on the pod here. Now, I got to be honest. Let's start with the big one. There has been very few character arcs such as yourselves in the last 3 months that we have witnessed. Since the beginning, a lot of Rays fans turned on you. And now you seem like the guy who might have been able to save what Rays fans consider a tremendous part of their fabric of the region. So initially opposing the deal, then changed your perspective. I think it'd be really interested if you could elaborate a little bit more on what were the factors that made you change your perspective from a couple months ago.
So I voted against the deal in July for two reasons. One being I didn't like the land development part of the deal. That was more of a St. Pete deal that the city made with the Rays. I didn't like that it was one-sided. And then when you go to the county part of the deal, we still had beach nourishment up in the air. And we were going back and forth with the Army Corps of Engineers on renourishing our beaches. Beaches are our number one tourism driver. And it was a possibility that we were going to have to pay for that ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I believe that our bed taxes should be used first and foremost for that. I didn't like the idea of, you know, taxpayer funded stadiums, you know, and so that's why I voted against it. But I am a huge, not only just a huge Rays fan, but I'm a huge baseball fan. You know, grew up going to spring training games, been going to Rays games since 1998. I could talk about the Lou Piniella years, the Aubrey Huff years, the Esteban Yan, as soon as he came into the game, it would be time to go, because you knew what was going to happen, back then when some of those guys in the bullpen got in. But then, you fast forward to Vince Namoli selling the team, and, bright new baseball minds coming in, with Joe Madden really reimagining baseball. And, the things that they did in 2008 and that incredible season. And I remember thinking that, at some point the Rays were going to slip like they always did, and slip in the standings, and that never happened. I remember Aki stepping on second base in the ALCS like it was yesterday. And so, there's all kinds, and then the, famous Wednesday night game 162, flipping back and forth between the Rays game and the MLB network, watching to see what happened, with the Orioles and the Red Sox game. And so, I mean, it's, being a Rays fan and being a county commissioner, I had to separate the two. But there was never going to be a point that I was going to allow my vote to be the deciding vote that baseball was going to be able to leave Tampa Bay. And, when Stu and the Rays kind of, made it a point that I was going to be the reason that they were going to try to do that, frankly, that ticked me off. And that was kind of the time that I started developing, okay, how am I going to be able to get to yes? Because you don't just want to be a flip-flopping politician.
Right.
You want to have a reason why you're voting, the way that you are. And lo and behold, the commissioner of baseball gave us the reason. And he kind of swooped in and became the hero. And he was the reason why I voted the way that I did. And I think without him, we would have probably just kept delaying it, because I never was going to vote against it, because I didn't want to be the one that killed it. And it would have just been a back and forth between us and the Rays. And I don't know what Commissioner Eggers would have done, but I think since he and I were on the commission in July, I think either one or both of us, would have realized that, the county made a commitment that, we were going to need to follow through on, even though we, disagreed with, that vote. And, frankly, we voted against it, but the county still made that commitment that we were going to have to follow through on.
Right. And Chris, you mentioned Rob Manfred swooping in, saving the day, so to speak, and doing what seemingly the Rays haven't done, is have conversations and meet with the elected officials and be transparent about what their actions were. But can you enlighten us or shed some light as to that meeting with Rob and kind of the groundwork he laid, just how that conversation went between you and him?
Yeah, so he talked emphatically of his support of Major League Baseball in the Tampa Bay area and keeping Major League Baseball here. Mm-hmm. And then he also talked about the need of passing the bonds to keeping Major League Baseball here. And so, it didn't take a brain surgeon to make that connection that, okay, we need to get this done, and quit delaying it. I thought that it was interesting that, the Rays haven't really seemed to be happy that we passed the bonds. Mm-hmm. And I think that, and there was a point, and part of what made me really, convinced me to vote for it was realizing that the Rays didn't want us to vote for it. Mm-hmm. I think they wanted us to be the ones that broke the deal. So they could have kept the land part of the deal, which I think they wanted, from the beginning. But they certainly haven't acted like they were, glad that we voted for it.
Yeah, and you mentioned, just following up on that, sorry, Ulysses, but Chris, you mentioned the Rays not necessarily wanting the county or the city to vote on the bonds or vote for the bonds in order for them to keep the land part of the deal. Do you have any insight or thought as to what their plans beyond that were of, hey, we're going to make a land grab and then move to Charlotte or Nashville or Timbuktu, whichever city or state is going to be the highest bidder for us to pack our belongings and go somewhere else while we're still cashing in on the land in St. Pete, Pinellas County.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, probably the most logical thing would be for them to try to cash in and go to like Tampa. But with Stu, you never know what's, if he doesn't like that deal, he'll say, okay, well, they're not cooperating. Now let's try Charlotte or Nashville. And so, it certainly was a possibility that they could have kept the land and reaped the $500 million or whatever it was and use that money to then try to go someplace else. Or sell part of the team, keep the land deal and move that way. And so that, that was another factor that just didn't sit right. And I'm not sure that the people in Tampa would really want to have a team that was, basically, given to them because of the taxpayers of St. Pete.
Mm-hmm.
I bet most Rays fans, when we heard Manfred meeting with the governor and then coming down here, it kind of rang alarms of like, hey, something good is happening. If MLB stepping in, this could be good things. Ended up, like you said, being a positive thing to keep the stadium deal, his conversations with you guys. But has there been, besides this visit, has there been any other type of involvement from MLB throughout this whole situation with the stadium deal?
Yes. I mean, I don't want to really get into specifics, but they have been helpful.
Okay. Understood. Now, following up on, because there's a lot to get to with how the Rays have acted and behaved or not behaved through all this, but one thing that has really shocked myself, Ulysses, and I'm sure many people out there, is them suggesting that the delay of the bonds by 49 days, whatever the exact benchmark is, has led to cost overruns. And I know there's been numbers thrown out left and right of $150 to $200 million. Is there any way that is possible, or do you think this is simply posturing for them to come back and find financing one way or another?
I think that, and as a lifelong Rays fan, or at least a Rays fan since 1998, it saddened me whenever I got to the point in this whole deal where I started to not trust them. And I dealt a lot with Matt Silverman and Brian Auld, and those two guys, I think are brilliant business people. I've actually only met Stu Sternberg twice.
Wow.
But it got to the point where I just no longer trust them. And, they became adversarial. But the one time that I think that they were being honest in the whole last several months, at least since July, was when they had the conversation with Brian Scott the day before the first vote that we delayed, where Brian Auld said that their finances, the projections were not going in the right direction because of the hurricane, and he was trying to keep the deal together. I think he was having an honest conversation with somebody who was supportive of the deal. I think the hurricane has done a number on their finances, and they're just looking for an excuse of, okay, y'all delayed the vote, so now give us more money, which that's not going to happen because they should have planned for cost overruns,
right? Especially
when they signed it. They signed an agreement in July, and on that agreement that they signed, they're responsible for the cost overruns. And, a lot was made of the delay that we did in October. And yeah, I was ticked off because they weren't, or I don't know if ticked off is the right word, but I was kind of perturbed that they weren't saying where they were going to play. They weren't really, making any public pronouncements. My colleagues were upset because they weren't making any public pronouncements. The vote to the delay was 6-1. So 4 people that had voted for the deal then voted to delay the bonds the first time. But it was right after a hurricane. And so we had people in the audience who had lost their house, who had lost, their businesses, and we're dealing with giving $1 billion business hundreds of millions of dollars. And so the optics of that were horrible. And the Rays were certainly not the only business in Pinellas County that suffered from a hurricane, but they were the only business in town that was in line to get the kind of subsidy that they were getting. So the fact that they did not understand, that, hey, a hurricane just happened, you got to give us a little bit of time, to deal with this before we, pass these bonds. And by the way, the county didn't do anything to violate the agreement. We didn't have a deadline. And Manfred, soon after that made a public, announcement basically saying, finances are what they are. We're going to give them time to figure it out. And we figured it out. And so now it's on the Rays to figure it out on their end. And most, billionaire team owners can, write the check. And if, Stu can't write the check, then I believe there's really only one thing for him to do.
We'll get to that. But first, I want to focus on something that you said a couple minutes back that perked my ears. You said, okay, you don't trust them, which, in during that vote, you did say that. But I want to know, when exactly did that rupture happen? Because I'm thinking, obviously, the last 2 months carry a lot of weight in that trust. But were there fractions ahead of that, or has it just been these last 2.5, 3 months that you're like, nope, this is it, I no longer trust it?
I think when Stu made the comments to the Tampa Bay Times, where he was basically threatening to move again, and he said something to the effect that baseball in Tampa Bay is in jeopardy or something along those lines. Mark Tompkins wrote the article, and it was a week or two after we had the first delay. And then they wrote an article, or they wrote a letter to us saying that because of the delay, they're not going to be able to get a stadium finished in 2028. It'll have to be pushed back to 2029. And that's when it was like, okay, I'm done with you guys. And, now this is just, politics. And frankly, the speech that I gave the other day, I started writing the day that Stuart Sternberg threatened to move the team. And that was whenever, and I told my aide that day, I said, I'm going to vote yes, but I'm going to do it in my time. And we have to come up with a reason why we're voting yes. And it's not going to, we're not doing it on the Rays timetable. We're doing it on our timetable, and then we delayed it again. And, because they had sent us a letter saying that, we were going to they needed more money and so forth.
Okay, it is time to tell you about FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel. They are America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W, like which players will score a touchdown, how many points will each team score, and that's just scratching the surface of how many betting options and opportunities they have. If you don't believe me, well, that means you just need to visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at 250 buckaroos in bonus bets. Be sure to make every moment more with FanDuel. They are an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. So, getting to Stu Sternberg real quick, do you believe that he'll ultimately sell the team? Like, what? I'm just trying to figure out how this, fast forward a little bit to March, what happens. If they're going to live up to their obligations and make sure that all their ducks in a row, or if they're going to let it default. And if that happens, what's the action point from there? So I guess I asked a couple questions there, but I don't know if you have any take of where where you see things going come March. I think March 31st is where the Rays basically have to document that they've done everything they need to do to get things going and to get shovels in the ground with this project.
Yeah. So Stu has more money than I will ever have in my entire life. And so I do not feel bad for the guy. He can sell tomorrow, be a billionaire a couple times over.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that he necessarily has the money to be a Major League Baseball owner. And I'm not sure that he's capable of writing a $700 or $800 million check on his own next week or next month or in March.
Mm-hmm.
I think that before March, they're going to have to sell equity in the team.
Mm-hmm.
And if he does not sell, or if he does not, meet the his end of the deal, I don't think that he can then go to Major League Baseball and go to the other owners and say, hey, baseball is not working in Tampa Bay. I have to move. Allow me to move. I don't think he'll be able to get 23 other owners to then say, okay, let's, you can give it a shot someplace else. Because local government just put $600 million on the table and said, okay, here's your new stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Just, match what we did and provide for the cost overruns and the ongoing expenses, and all this is yours. And if he's not capable of doing that, I think that's a major embarrassment. And I think at that point, he would be almost forced to sell.
It also feels kind of like if, the Steinbrenners, the Cranes, the Middletons would kind of look at him saying, you're getting $600 million and you're not building a stadium. Like, it's just a bad look.
Right. And there's no shame in, because I think he could probably sell tomorrow and get, $1.82 billion, somewhere in that range, because teams are going up, every day. And there's only so many billionaires that are able to buy teams. And I do believe that there are people in Tampa Bay, that are trying to, to get their ducks in a row to then be able to buy the Rays. So I think even if this deal goes through, I think within the next couple of years, he will sell the team.
About an hour after that vote passed, the Rays came out with a statement basically saying, yeah, we're going to need more money, though. Was there a view by the commission saying, yeah, even if we vote, this is probably what the Rays are going to happen? Or was that kind of like a shock that statement came out so strongly and so quickly?
So it did not surprise me that they asked for more money. It surprised me that they did it so fast. It was like they'd already had it written out. So after we took that vote, we took a recess and we went into the back and we had some sandwiches. And I was back there with some staff and our lawyers and a couple of my colleagues. And I heard somebody say, did Chris write this? And I said, what are you talking about? And they said, have you seen the Ray statement? And I said, no. And I read it and I said, is this from today? And they said, yes. And I looked at them and I said, I'm not sure that I could have written that better myself. Because it was just so tone deaf that, they're just essentially given $600 million right after a hurricane. And their, first reaction is, okay, we need some more money.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that, I don't want to say everything that Mr. Manfred and I talked about, but one thing that he did not say is, hey, not only vote for these bonds, but give them extra money. Because I can tell you that the county commission is not going to give them extra money. And so if the county commission is not giving them extra money, they'll have to go to the city of St. Pete. Well, the city of St. Pete is dealing with hurricane recovery and all sorts of stuff. And they're not using the same sort of revenues that, we're dealing or that we would be giving them. So they're essentially going to be asking people that are, hurricane victims and recovering from hurricanes to give them extra money. I mean, that's just so absurd. It's laughable.
It really is. And tone deaf is such a apropos term.
I was just going to say tone deaf is like the perfect
Right.
way to describe them lately. Yeah.
And again, this is the deal that they agreed to, here to stay. It was part of the whole gig. And based on what Mayor Ken Welch has said, they're not giving another dime or another penny, whatever type of phrase he used for that. And I know the county's not going to give any more funds. I mean, $600+ million is a pretty good chunk of change to get things started. So really it's on the Rays to find private financing, get a loan from MLB, Stu selling a portion or large stake of the team. It's on them to figure out the financial end of things to get this thing off the ground, so to speak.
Right.
So, one question that I have, and I think that, again, going back to it, tone deaf and lack of communication, sketchy. That's just what the Rays have been of late and for a long time when we're talking about new stadiums and so forth. But going forward, if they're going to be a long-term partner, hopefully with the county, the city, the Tampa Bay area, what would you like to see from them as far as future communication, engagement, and really, is it more face-to-face, picking up the phone, answering emails? It just seems like there was a lack of that throughout this whole process. And is it just about getting both sides to the table and breaking bread and talking things out going forward?
Yeah, I mean, there's really no negotiation left to be had.
Right.
And so, I mean, they don't need to talk to me. There's nothing they need to say to me. My wife and I go to about 8 or 10 games a year, and we actually got engaged like a year and a half ago.
Wow.
On April 1st, and it was the first opening weekend. And so we celebrated going to a Rays game. And I told her, recently, she said, so I guess we can't really go to a Rays game this year to celebrate. And I said, sorry, we can't. And so, I mean, that's just, but that kind of comes with the territory. I told her we can watch it on TV and go to a sports bar or something. Because that's what we did last year was, our 1 year, engagement anniversary, we celebrated at a Rays game. And so that was going to kind of be our yearly thing. But I mean, they don't need to say anything to me. Negotiation is over. There's nothing, I think they probably have a community issue, but they've never really cared about the community. I think I would not be surprised if tickets at Steinbrenner Field this year are over $100, just to get in, because of this, what they perceive to be a supply and demand issue.
Right.
And I think it would be neat to go to, a game in a setting like that, because it's a smaller stadium, more intimate feel. But I don't know how many, average fans are going to shell out, $100 or $150 a ticket, on a Tuesday or Wednesday night.
And possibly getting heat stroke or dealing with the rain delay and all that as well. So plus the parking and the concessions that I'm sure they're going to jack up. I mean, I think it was Topkin that reported that some of the season ticket sales prices and general admin prices are going to be, they could be 40% increased, which again, supply demand, their business.
But it's, they operate in such a way that they try to make money every year. And so now all the lost revenue from the hurricane, they're going to try to pick up this year and future years, and that's going to be passed down to the fans. And I'm not sure if the fans are really going to participate in that. They may just want to watch them on TV.
Right. Which a lot of Rays fans do. Talking about, this is actually a two-parter. Usually, let's take the Rays and the stadium deal out of it. Does the Pinellas side ever talk to Hillsborough County about anything?
I mean, I talk to, the commissioners and legislators over there from time to time. I did ask our administrator at one time early on during the negotiations if we could give Hillsborough County some of our TDT funds for Ray Stadium over there, just so we didn't have to deal with them. And that's actually illegal. So
Okay.
so that
We
we
learned
wouldn't be
something
able to
new
do
every
that.
day.
Yeah, you're not allowed to use your tourism dollars for outside of your county that you live in.
Okay. Okay. Well, then my second part of this question is, after this hurricane happened, were there conversations between the Hillsborough and Pinellas side once the Steinbrenner decision came about? Or maybe if you had, I understand that 30 minutes before the announcement, that's when you guys were told. So I bet that there wasn't any conversation with Hillsborough prior to that, but post that.
I found out through the media.
Mm.
I'm not sure how my colleagues found out about it.
Okay.
But I haven't
Any
talked
conversation
to
with
any.
Hillsborough?
I'm sorry.
Any conversation with Hillsborough County after Steinbrenner Field was announced for the 2025 season?
No, not for me. I don't know about my colleagues.
Okay. Now, speaking on that for a moment, obviously we know the Rays are playing in Steinbrenner for 2025. After that is a question mark. It seems like there might be some moves to repair Tropicana Field, but Chris, do you have any wish or hope that maybe they can possibly find a way to come back to Pinellas County in 2026 and beyond as the Trop is getting repaired, i.e., in Clearwater, Dunedin, something to that effect, Al Lang?
Let's talk about game time. It doesn't matter if you want to go to a comedy, a theater, a baseball game, a football game, a basketball game. It doesn't matter. Guess what? Game time has it. And you have the best place because game time shows you the total up front. You can just say, hey, don't surprise me. Don't do like a stadium deal and give me the numbers afterwards. I need to see them right in front of me. And you get that with game time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets by using Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On MLB to get your $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Hey, Kevin, what time is it?
It is game time. Perhaps.
I mean, I think the current Rays ownership is always going to do what is best for their bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's been shown time and time again. I'm not sure how many people from St. Pete are going to drive to Tampa this year. I mean, that remains to be seen. I think there will be, especially early on, there's going to be, a lot of sellouts. But I think you'll get to a point where there's, not going to be sellouts in Steinbrenner. And I think that's going to surprise their ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not sure, and Ulysses will probably know better than I, what kind of fandom there is on the Tampa side for the Rays. I know that's something that the Rays have been, trying to get for years, more fans over there. But with the current use agreement with the city and the Rays, the moment that the Trop is repaired, the Rays have to go back there. And so that's one reason why the city's going ahead and trying to repair it. So, I mean, I don't see the Rays playing in Clearwater or Dunedin or anything like that because they're always going to play where they think they can make the most money.
Well, you led me right to my next question then. If we are under the premise that this ownership is going to do what's best for their bottom line ultimately, and they have chosen Steinbrenner Field for 2025, doesn't it beg the question of like, well, why wouldn't they be doing this 2026 and 2027 if the Trop doesn't get repaired, or at least until the Trop gets repaired, and they're not even going to be looking at any other venues?
Well, there is each Major League Baseball team has to have, as part of their like franchise agreement with Major League Baseball, they have to give Major League Baseball a plan to play in a Major League Baseball stadium.
Mhm.
So you can't be an owner and say, hey, I'm going to, instead of playing at Yankee Stadium, I'm going to play in this high school park or this college park or this minor league park. You have to play in a Major League Baseball stadium. And so Steinbrenner's they're only doing that for 1 year. So they would have to have Major League Baseball's approval to do that. And which was so bizarre that the Rays went to the St. Pete City Council and told them, hey, don't repair the trop. We don't want you to. I thought that was one of the most bizarre things about this whole situation, because I think they were trying to position themselves to get a payout from the city instead of having the trop repaired. And from people that I've talked to, there's not really a local minor league park that that would really be suitable for Major League Baseball standards. So Clearwater, the Steinbrenner, so forth. There might be some like college stadiums, especially like in Omaha.
I've heard,
Yeah.
You know, and things like that, where they could say, okay, this is suitable, because you also have to think about, you know, the other 29 teams that are going to be, you know, traveling. They don't want to be playing in, you know, a minor league baseball stadium.
right.
And so, you know, they do it for 1 year, but you don't really want to do that for the next 3 or 4. And so, but there's not really, you know, you can't share a stadium in Miami. You can't, you know, be a perpetual road team. And
Right.
so I think what's going to happen is the trop will get repaired. And I think at some point in 26, the Rays will be playing at the trop.
What I know that you probably have like a top 10, but if maybe you have a podium of statements that have thrown you off the most since this started. I know you probably have a lot, but if you could just give us a little podium of those statements, I think that would kind of paint the picture on your perspective.
You mean like that have just been kind of caught me off guard?
Yes.
I mean, I think the city council one where they told the city not to repair the trop, that would be up there. I think also them harping on the 49-day delay, I think is pretty bizarre. If they would have just been honest from the beginning and said, hey, the trop has been damaged, like we're shell shocked, it's going to screw up our finances, like we're going to need some help in this deal. Because I think if we would have just voted for it in October, they'd still be in the same predicament. I think part of it is they're trying to save face with the other owners and Major League Baseball and so forth. And now, you know, they're kind of stuck. And, you know, and that's why I asked the question I asked last week of our stadium consultant, who has done like 25 or so deals around the country, of, you know, about how long does it take to get an equity stake approved in a major league, you know, team. Because as soon as March 31st comes, you know, this deal is off. And, you know, because they signed it in July. You know, the city hasn't done anything to cancel it. The county hasn't done anything to cancel it. They can't, and, you know, March 31st, they can't blame the county for delaying a bond vote. You know, and so, you know, it's basically put up or shut up time.
Yeah. Now, a couple things here. Obviously, again, the Rays playing at Steinbrenner Field in 2025, not Pinellas County. 2026, they may not be in Pinellas County. They could be in Omaha. They could be elsewhere. Is there any idea or prediction or prognostication of not having the Rays in St. Petersburg and Pinellas County, how that impacts tourism and tax revenues for that area? Are there any working numbers as to the impact of not having the Rays in your area in 2025, what that could mean going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's not good. You know, they had I want to say like more than half of their fans came from out of the like the Tri-County area.
Oh, wow.
Which was impressive when they told me that, because I would not think that was the case. It was, or maybe it was like 35 or 40% or something, which was high. And one of the areas that they drew from was like Lakeland, Orlando, and people that would come over and stay for a weekend. Or people that would come up from up north, stay at the beach for a week and hit a couple games while they were here. And so that was one of the reasons why I was, perturbed that they were not playing in Clearwater or Dunedin or like Al Lang or something, because, we're missing out on that tourism, especially since we were using the bed tax dollars. But we'll see what it looks like in Tampa.
I think another person that has had a tough time personality-wise has been Rob Manfred in the past with, the changes to the game and all that. But I think given what has happened in the last month, a lot of Rays fans, I think, just gave Rob Manfred some brownie points that he probably didn't see coming. Do you think if Rays fans, maybe not the casual Rays fan, I'm saying the one that watches Locked On Rays usually, the obsessed one, would they have been shocked at anything if they had, you don't have to tell me what, but would they have been shocked if they had been a fly on the wall in those meetings with Rob Manfred?
Yes. And he could do the golden bat roll tomorrow, and Rays fans should embrace it.
Wow.
And I think that he is he is probably the biggest advocate, one of the biggest advocates in Major League Baseball for fans in Tampa Bay. I can't sit here and tell you that this deal is going to get done in March. But I can tell you that I would be absolutely shocked if this deal does not get finished in March and Major League Baseball allows Stu to move the team. I just don't see a scenario where that would happen. Because I think
a lot of Rays fans just sighed a big relief right there after you said that, Chris.
Yeah. No, and I mean that with all sincerity, because I don't think he would have, because I think, and a lot of people compare us with Oakland. The Rays are much more far along than Oakland ever was. This deal is finished. It's been signed. It's been voted on by both the city and the county. The Rays have signed it. And so if it dies because Stu Sternberg can't write a check, that's not on local politicians. That's not on Rays fans. That's on one person. And when you think about the fans in Tampa Bay, both in Pinellas, Hillsborough, the surrounding Pasco, Polk, Sarasota, Manatee, who would have ever thought that Tampa Bay would become a hockey community in a hockey town?
True.
And so, when you have a, and I've seen it with my own eyes. When I was a kid, I remember going to a game and booing Derek Jeter at the Trop, and an old guy behind me getting mad at me because I was booing the opponent. But now, people that are our age have kids of their own who know of no other team but the Tampa Bay Rays.
Right.
And when we were growing up, that wasn't the case. And so when you have, new generations of Rays fans, that's going to change. And then it's only going to get, better and better. And so I don't think Major League Baseball is just going to give up on a community like that because our owner is cheap and doesn't want to write a check for a stadium.
Right. Thinking positively, let's assume this gets done. We have a groundbreaking ceremony, shovels in the dirt, so on and so forth. Building goes vertical, and we have a future of a new Rays stadium and the historic gas plant project. What makes you most excited? Why should the Tampa Bay, Pinellas County St. Petersburg community be excited about this project? How will this transform the area? What do you see as the benefits to a project like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's going to be eventually, it'll be in line with what Atlanta is.
Mm.
With the battery around
Yes.
the stadium.
Yeah.
I had a meeting not too long ago with Kathy Wood, an investor, hedge fund technology businesswoman, who she's from California. She was telling me that when she was looking at places to go and bring her businesses, Tampa Bay was a place that she identified, and she wants to make Tampa Bay and St. Pete the next Austin, Texas. And that means hundreds of jobs. That means, not in, high paying jobs, new kinds of businesses. And I think that it, really, really kind of makes us not just a new up and coming thriving place in Florida, but in the country. And you couple that with a major league team, and then we're really rocking and rolling. And so when you're a politician, one of the rules is not to do something stupid. And the second rule is not be responsible for losing a major league baseball team. And my nephew, who's a big Rays fan, texted me. He's 20 or 21. Texted me about a month ago and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Just relax. It'll work out." And but you don't want that on your political obituary that you were responsible for losing the hometown baseball team.
Right. Well, we got to give, the assist there on the 20-year-old nephew. Thank you for that, 20-year-old nephew. Nice going. Okay. You talk about the future of the stadium, what could be. Let's keep it a little bit more positive now. I want to know who Chris is as a fan, and I will tell you who I am as a fan and who Kevin is as a fan. We've talked about the stadium, Publix Park, we've dubbed it. Let's talk about what we want, things that are missing at the Trop that you would really love to get in there. And now, for me, cup holders.
I was going to mention cup holders.
That cup holders
that in one of your last episodes.
Yeah, cup holders has to be a thing. Kevin thinks splash guards in the bathroom really important. Why are they not there? We got to get those. Chris, who are you as a fan in this next stadium?
Yeah.
What would you like to see that would make your experience even better?
So I'm a bit on the heavier side. And I've noticed that the outfield seats compared to the seats on like the third base or the first base side are a lot skinnier. And so maybe keeping the same width on the seats.
Okay.
I love what they did with allowing people to walk around. I like the new center field food stuff. I'm trying to think what else they I don't really have too many complaints because I actually like the Trop. I love that it's always 72 degrees.
Yes.
You don't have to worry about a rain delay. I think since I've been there, there's been 2 lightning delays where the power's gone out. But I really don't have too many complaints.
I think people that complain about the Trop usually either have never been to the Trop or haven't lived a summer in Florida.
Yeah, I think it's a national media thing.
Yeah, I will say I don't like that we have our own rules. And those rules always come into effect during a nationally televised game. When people are watching.
Exactly.
Right. It's a bad look sometimes. Chris, you've mentioned on the pod that you've been following the team since the really bad years of the Then Devil Rays. But overall, all your fandom for 25 plus years, who is A, your favorite position player of all time, and B, your favorite pitcher of all time with the Rays?
Yeah, I would say Ben Zobrist is probably my favorite, or maybe Sam Folds.
Okay.
And My favorite pitcher would either be I like Kazmir just by how we got him because we fleeced the Mets. Or maybe Blake Snell.
Good choices.
You know, him getting pulled in the World Series still kind of hurts. And I saw that he was asked about that during his signing recently during the press conference. But
maybe you could get part ownership in the team based on the money he's rolling down lately. So.
Yeah. That'd be nice. No, he gave a really mature answer about that.
Yeah.
He just kind of said, you know what? It was my job to have given him more reason to let me in than to take me out. I was like, wow, it's really mature, Blake.
And I love Kevin Cash.
Yes.
But I think that's really and I mean, you can always, if it would have paid off, he would have been a genius.
Right. So, he would have been. Yeah. That's the thing about 2020, right? How do they call it, Kevin? A Monday
morning quarterback. Hindsight is 2020. All that. Yeah.
Exactly. But it does bring a point of sometimes I think we're looking at the spreadsheets maybe just a tad too much. Because who didn't see who didn't care the numbers? Joe Madden in game 162 when he said, you know what, Dan Johnson, you get up there, pal, and you do something like that. That's why we got into the game. That magic of anything can happen. And
and he was so quirky, the things that he would do and like the road trip dressing up. One of my favorite Joe Madden things that he did, and I don't remember what game it was, but the Rays were struggling, and he walked out onto the mound and called the infield in and told whoever was pitching, said, y'all are going to win tonight, but I'm going to be watching in the clubhouse. And they didn't understand what he was talking about, and then started yelling at the pitcher. And when the umpire started walking up, and he was really yelling at the umpire, but was looking at the pitcher, and ended up getting tossed, and the infielders, were starting to laugh, and lo and behold, they came back and won the game, but he was just trying to, light a spur under him, and it worked.
Yeah. He was really ahead
stuff like that Joe, did that, seemed to always pay off.
Yeah, he was really ahead of his time, and have to give him so much credit for turning around a losing culture.
Yeah.
I feel like that is very tough to do with a shoestring budget. That's always been the Rays' calling card too.
Yeah, so, and for all of the, things that the current ownership has done wrong, one thing that they did right was put the baseball people in place that they did. The front office people, and I mean, there's several front offices around Major League Baseball that are run by Rays alumni.
Yeah.
And and that's a credit to our hometown team.
I think one of the things, like you said, I mean, you can talk negatively about the Rays, but one thing is that at least Stu is not like other owners in sports where they the ego is so big that they also have to make the moves. Like, he's just letting the baseball people do the work, and that's really appreciative. But it also makes you think, man, if we have the smartest one of the smartest front office, what could be done if there was just a willingness or the ability to spend just a little bit more.
Right. Somebody who wants to win a championship and not just, make a profit.
Exactly.
Yeah. So. And that's the I know we're going long here, but that's the big difference is you have a lot of owners out there that they want to win almost at all cost. And they're not running the team necessarily like a business venture, but because they're fans, they're competitive, and they want to, beat the other 29 owners at the end of the day.
Like a Steve Cohen, a John Middleton, the folks that run the Dodgers, people like that, understand that they're going to lose money every year, but it's about raising the trophy.
Right.
Yeah. And it's also like, you can make your money elsewhere. Like, if I think a lot of people that are sports fans, if they had the money, they would treat being an owner for fun. It wouldn't be to gain a profit. I think, obviously you'd like to make some money. Like, we're not all, living in cloud nine and being naive, but it does seem like the Steve Cohen mentality of this is just because I enjoy it, rather than this is my business and I want to make money off this. It just seems like it gets lost a little bit,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Chris, final thing from me, and then we'll wrap up here. And I know it's still early. Spring training hasn't started. There might be more moves on the 4, but any prediction as to how you think the Rays will do in 2025 on the field, not necessarily the off the field sideshow, but win-loss based on some of the additions they've made. I know they've, cut payroll left and right, but they did add Danny Jansen. They made a small move for Eloy Jimenez. We know about the pitching and bullpen. Junior seems to be a pretty good guy this coming year, but any idea how you think they're going to do this year on the field?
I would love if they added a little bit of offense,
yeah,
to go with the pitching staff that they have. I'm afraid that's not going to happen. And, they're going to waste, great arms. And, if I had to make a prediction, I would say that they'll probably cut even more payroll, unfortunately. Hopefully I'm wrong. As a fan, I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to see them sign Anthony Santander, or somebody like that. But, I don't, that's not really in their way of doing things. But, to add a little bit of offense, I think they would be a playoff team. I think as of now, they're a 500 team.
There's still time, but yeah, not getting the hopes up for, spending millions upon millions of dollars for Santander or something like that. But Chris, you've been awesome. You've been great, forthcoming. Appreciate you for doing this. Yes. Is there anything you want to mention? Any word out to the constituents? The floor is yours if you want to mention.
No, go Rays.
All right, perfect.